people. Chris Landry joining us now. So, Chris, I write this column yesterday on offthehooksports.com, and it's just about be careful what you wish for playing Lane Kiffin. And I'm not saying Tennessee fans, if they were to play Lane Kiffin in the SEC championship game, and we're playing big ifs and buts, candies and nuts. But I just thought, Tennessee is cruising right along. You don't need him involved in the storyline. And boy, did I misread the fan base. Everybody wants another shot at Lane Kiffin.
They want. Yeah, no, that's true. They probably they've had their shot at Alabama. It's funny because I'm sure the Alabama fans want a shot at Tennessee again. Or who knows? That's. Look, I mean, they got fans that hold a grudge. They got fans that really hold a grudge, and they're Tennessee fans. They really on a different level. Look, I get it. Look, here's the thing about it. It's and I'm not going to tell fans how to look at it because that's not my place. I'm not a fan. But I just say this: that for Tennessee, we've talked about it. Things have fallen right for them, and they've got a really good team. Just take care of your business. Just get there. I mean, wanting someone in the SEC championship game where you got a lot of work to do before you even get there is exactly what usually happens when you get brought down to earth. So that's not. It doesn't really matter what the fans think. Hope that doesn't permeate through the team, and I don't think it is. Just take care of business. Don't get sloppy this week because you're going to win the game either way. You just want to get things on the right track because I can tell you this: Kentucky's going to look at this the same way that Tennessee looked at Alabama. So you got to take care of that. Then you got a Georgia team that's going to be a big challenge, and then it's going to be very difficult if they've got to beat. I mean, I don't think they're if they got to beat Alabama again, that's going to be very difficult. And if they've got to play Ole Miss, that's not going to be easy. It gets more difficult because the challenge is there's more pressure. Tennessee, I know they were pressure to finally get the monkey off their back last week, but now it's a different pressure. It's Tennessee is, they're playoffs. I mean, it's almost like, they've got the title this year. How many are they going to win in the next 5, Chris? I mean, it's just really off the charts. It's like my experience is just take it as it is, and of course that's more of a coaching thing and not a fan thing. But that's often why fans just get totally out of whack. Well, I don't understand it. Why? Because you don't handle success, and a lot of teams don't. So now this is a different role for this Tennessee program that's been in a long time, where they're going to be a favorite here, against Kentucky. And then, there are going to be a lot of people that think they're good enough to beat Georgia and on the road, and some that don't. But there's going to be a lot of pressure to don't ruin what's been a great season and all the breaks and all the good things that you've done. So I think worrying about Lane Kiffin or Nick Saban or Kirby Smart or anybody else, just take care of Tennessee's business is what my advice would be. But fans can do whatever they want because it doesn't really matter. It's just the players and the coaches. I think they see it differently.
Let me ask you about the psychology of one thing about that. So from my conversations, and we would like people to subscribe, and share, and they can see Chris Landry Chalk Talk. We do 3 of those a week, and boy, you want insight, you're going to get it. Go to LandryFootball.com as well. But Chris, I don't think from my conversations with Cooper Mays and Jacob Warren that there is going to be a psychological drop because they have had success and there is more pressure on them. That's just the feel I get from talking to them. I think this is a very well-grounded team, even after the Florida win, even after the Alabama win. However, I do believe there's something they can't control, and that is they're not going to sneak up on anybody anymore. That those days are over, and now that they've got some number 1 votes, whoever it is, UT Martin, South Carolina, they realize that this could be their Super Bowl.
Right.
And I wonder, is that a real psychological factor for opponents? Have you been either a part of those teams that wanted to knock off a big dog, or have you been the big dog that had the target on its back?
Been both. And here's the thing. It's not that they're going to take people lightly, and they're certainly not going to say we're going to take people lightly. It's how you prepare. It's weeks like this where, you've won, it's big, and, it's not as big a game. It's a letdown. It won't affect whether they win this game or not, but you can start to ingrain bad habits. We're human beings. I could sleep in a little bit more today. It's not as big a day. And then you do it again and again. All of a sudden it's a pattern. All of a sudden now you're in a game against Kentucky, and it's in middle of the third quarter, and they got a 7-point lead on you. And then, how do you handle that? You got pressure that's a little bit different than before because you're supposed to win. And, all of that, this factors in, and you don't know how you're going to respond to that until you're in it. No one just sits there and says, yeah, look, it's experience that you got to go through. You got to kind of go through the fire a little bit to kind of deal with the heat. And I fully expect them, because they've got a lot of veteran leadership on the team. This is a really good team, and I think some of the key components that they have in place, they can have a lot of success the rest of the way. But it's not about taking people lightly. It's about how do you respond in your preparation that's going to lead to it. And you got to remember that people are going to, when you have success, it's human nature to stay the course. What we've done has worked, and it's sometimes when you teach guys, it happens all the time. When you make mistakes and you win, there's just not the motivation to change because we got the result. We got the prize at the end of the game. When you lose, it's too late to go back and correct that game, and to change the outcome of that. So I think a lot of times that you don't want to, everyone's going to make adjustments. They're certainly going to see what Tennessee did against Alabama. Kentucky will, and if Alabama plays them again, and Georgia, they're all going to see that. So the stakes get higher, and the performance is going to have to be better. I said it, every week, that they're going to have to play better, than they did, against Alabama to beat Georgia and to get there. It's just going to have to be a constant elevation. And so can they do it? It's not just, well, they beat Alabama. They haven't done that forever, so everything else is a given. It doesn't work that way. It's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of attention to detail, and even better play than has been had to this point. And you tend to buy into how good you are when people are saying, well, you know what? They deserve to be ranked number one, and they're this and that. Nobody deserves anything because nobody's earned anything yet. It's about what you do through the entire course of the season, and then you can sit there and say, we did. The minute you start thinking that you deserve this and that, then all of a sudden, that's when you get knocked off, and then you can see you're forgotten immediately. Just as quick as you're celebrated, you're forgotten. So that's just the message I would give, and because it's the message that we always gave to our players in these situations.
So I know we talked about ifs and buts and how that's, that's just neither here nor there, but I'm going to keep going with the ifs and buts. So our today's tough question was, who would you rather see if Tennessee goes to the SEC championship, Ole Miss or Alabama? From a coaching perspective, which would you
how
think?
How far ahead of ourselves are we, Chris?
Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah, forget everything I said. Let's just go right at it. And the hell with you, Landry. Let's break down the Ole Miss Tennessee game right now. Let's do it. I love it.
From a coaching perspective.
Yeah, no, I get it. No.
Which team would you think Tennessee would rather face? Another round with Alabama or Ole Miss?
I don't think they want Alabama again, although I think they match up pretty well right now with Alabama's secondary the way it is. I think Ole Miss, I think the difficulty is Ole Miss's tempo kind of in their running game is a challenge, and I think that would present its own set of challenges. I don't think they want Alabama again. Here's the thing about it is they played a really good game against Alabama, and it wasn't flawless. They can play better. Tennessee, I'm talking about. But if you play Alabama again on a neutral site, and we're going to have to see Alabama the rest of the way. Are they going to commit 17 penalties and they're going to make the same mistake? I mean, if they do, bring on that Alabama team again. But, it's not like, I thought Alabama played maybe their worst game of the year, even more so than A&M in Texas, in terms of the mistakes were even more repeated. And yet, they had a chance to win it. Look, Tennessee, doesn't care. But for me, if I were looking at it from Tennessee standpoint and I'm saying, okay, what's the best chance for them to get to the conference championship game and who's the best? I don't know that I would want to play Alabama again if I were Tennessee, because I think you're going to see a better Alabama team. And very rarely do you beat Alabama. Do you beat them twice in 1 year? It's really rare. So I think of the two, they'd have better chances against Ole Miss. But again, and I think from a strategic standpoint, there's some things that match up well with Tennessee against Alabama secondary. However, I still think if Alabama plays a cleaner game, they probably win last week. They didn't. That's the whole point, is who plays a cleaner game. I always say who does what. I think that there's a really good chance that Alabama cleans things up. Maybe wrong this year, but I've seen them do it too many times to where they get better and better and better and clean things up. I don't know that I'd want to play Alabama on a neutral field in a revenge game, because that serves right into Alabama's wheelhouse of motivation.
Yeah,
man, I don't know if you can take these stupid
I'm trying so
adult
much.
dating sites off of the screen. I try to block them and somehow.
Hold on, I don't have my glasses on. What is this?
Oh my gosh, this is embarrassing.
How do you move it?
I don't know. I blocked it and somehow I put it on the screen. I apologize to all of you out there.
Dear God.
I hate these. I spend 30 minutes a day taking adult websites off of our stuff, and now I've somehow put them on the show. So I'm going to figure it out, and I'll just take me down for a second. But let me ask you this. So, Amanda, you got the next question out of this. Embarrassing. And
this is an awkward transition, but let's go for it.
Golly. Swap left, swap right. Do whatever you want to do in your own time. Just don't do it during the show. All right. So, Chris, let me what do you think of a potential Ole Miss Alabama matchup?
Well, yeah, we're going to get it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to get that here. Look, I think that
no, it's on me.
So we I am really Ole Miss Alabama. Is that what we're talking about? Yeah. I still think Alabama's in better position. I think Alabama matches up better, say, against Mississippi State this week. I think Alabama is a more complete team. I think that defending the pace of Ole Miss's, their tempo, because they have a fast tempo as well. But it's about the run game. I think that's going to be a little bit more challenging. I don't think Ole Miss throws it well enough, as well as Tennessee. I think I like Alabama to win out personally. I think they'll win this week, and I think they'll beat Ole Miss. But it's Ole Miss and LSU that are the two teams that are most capable of beating Alabama on the rest of their schedule before, they get to a conference championship game. So I think they beat Ole Miss. But look, all bets are off if Alabama keeps, committing 15 penalties a game. There's a lot of things could happen this week and future weeks. But I think that'll be cleaned up. I think over time that is cleaned up through repetition. But we'll see.
Well, I finally got those off. I'm sure you said a bunch of great things, Chris, but I was more worried about the adult site that was on.
Hey, it wasn't that good
on my face.
Let's not say that. Let's not say that.
It's an adult side right across. Okay, so Chris, Tennessee. If you're Tennessee, and let's face it, this is UT Martin, they're going to win. Give me the top 2 or 3 things that Josh Heupel would like to get accomplished, would like to work on. Perhaps that's personnel, getting a particular player to improve a little bit. Perhaps that's adding something to the playbook, perfecting something that maybe we have seen. What are 2 or 3 things, if you're Josh Heupel, you would like to accomplish other than beating Tennessee Martin, which they're going to do?
It's already happening. It's what you need to do in practice. Okay, getting the focus back, getting back to reality, that's a general thing. Okay, how do you do that? There are a couple of things that you do. I like to do this, and at this late stage of the season, you might not want to do this, but I think you might want to maybe put the pads on a little bit more to get a little bit of the focus. You will put some things that Alabama, that Kentucky and Georgia run into your game plan this week without inserting it as Kentucky
Gotcha.
in Georgia stuff. But so you begin to work on it a little bit, and you begin to me, it's about attention to details. This would be the week that I'd be the hardest on them in practice, because it is going to be the week that they're going to be feeling themselves a little bit. Again, they're not going to say it, but you see it in practice. It's not as sharp running from drill to drill, and just they don't have the pep in their step, and it's those things that make you a step late, that you ingrain bad habits. So you're going to pay attention to details. So you run your system, you work a few things, you put a few things on tape that people may look at in Kentucky and Georgia, and you work that, and you try to be as sharp as you can. Limit the mistakes, the turnovers, and just the penalties. But the most important, when I talk mistakes, it's not just those mistakes. And then when I say like Alabama made mistakes, it's not just the penalties. It's just missing your landmarks and coverage, being a line wrong with the wrong technique. You've got your wrong foot forward. Those are things that are details that can become habit forming, good or bad. Practice doesn't make perfect. It makes permanent. So, you got to have perfect practice, and you got to stress that. So that's what I'm doing all week. And that's going to lead to whatever the score is going to be this week. And it's going to lead to sharper preparation to kind of get things on track for next week, to, be in groove, in a routine to, Dave, Amanda, you guys know this. Must be, if you work out, there are days you don't want to work out. I don't want to do it. But if you don't do it, then it's easier to not do it more often. And so if you're working out 5 days a week, then before you know it, it's 2 days a week. And it's just, you've got to do that. And if you do that and you do it in a way that it's not about this opponent, it's about us. And if we're going to be great, you've got to do things great all the time. And you've got to focus on that so that you can be great when it's the fourth quarter against Georgia or Kentucky or whatever. Those things are built in a day-to-day practice.
Agreed. Bill, good morning to you on our message board. And I want to remind you that Chris Landry's appearance brought to you in part by Biles Automotive Group. They are an authority right there on Callahan Drive. Biles Automotive Group is about integrity. They want, they need, and they appreciate your business. So whether it's a great car selection and you want to make a purchase and get a great deal, and a deal with integrity, and they stand behind it, or it's the service department that you need to be taken care of with your car, they'll do you a fine service at Biles Automotive Group. So, Chris, when I heard Darnell Wright moving from left tackle to right tackle, I was like, oh, you're getting too fancy. It kind of reminded me of the Dave Clawson flip-flopping offensive lines a little bit. I know it's not the same thing, but I thought, why move him when he's a proven commodity at left tackle to right tackle? Well, as is oftentimes the case, I was proven dead wrong. That has worked out extremely well. Why has it worked out so well? And why do you think they did that in the first place, move Darnell Wright from left tackle to right tackle? Because he's winning awards and hearing from Cole Kubelik and all that. He's winning awards I've never heard of.
Well, and we talked about it during the summer, or
right.
Sometimes in August when they were deciding it, and I discussed why they were doing it at that point. They're trying to get, because they don't play the tight end very often in an online position, they need what I would call left tackle feet on both sides of the line of scrimmage. They need to be able to protect edge rushers, and these were the two most athletic guys. And the reason for the move is just that. These were the two most experienced, technique sound, athletic tackles that they have. And so they wanted to get them on the field. It's different, back, when you with Clausen or even with Phillip wanted to get the best 5 linemen on the field, but it was a run blocking unit mostly. And so they could put tackles at guard and guard at tackle. But in the passing system that this is, and the run game and getting good angles, you've got to have really good foot quickness. So they've got 2 guys that can do that, and they're really technique sound. So if you don't have that, then you have a complete different dynamic. You can't drop back and have the time to throw the football, and you can't get the ball deep. What do they like to do? They like to go deep a lot, right? Well, you can't do that if you don't have good protection. So, if you got to keep a tight end in to block to help, you got a problem. So they wanted to get their best athletes at the tackle position on the field at the same time. So that's why they did it. He did it very well. And they're doing a very good job, and they're coaching them very well. They've got a really good line coach. But the thing that adds to that, on top of all of that, it's not a but, it's an and. This is a system that I don't think people give enough credit to the fact of their commitment to the run game. Mm-hmm. And so what they do is by running the football, you manipulate to defensive fronts. You slow down pass rushes of defensive fronts. If they got to set the edge in the run game, they can't tee off. This is not a drop back, 5-7 step drop back team. So that puts more pressure on the tackles. This is quick tempo. This is good angles. The defensive line is going to always be more tired than the offensive line. The offensive line doesn't have to run very far. The most they got to run is from point A to point B between snaps. Defensive line's gas. You run tempo and the ball comes out quick and you run an RPO, it's easier to run. So we talk about this being a quarterback-friendly system. It's also, I think, an offensive line-friendly system. It is not to say that anybody could do it, because that is not the case. These are really good guys that's aided by the system and the style that makes them different level good. But I'm going to tell you something. Breaking down the tape, there are some in the run game. Not only in the pass game, man, he did a great job down blocking and driving guys off. So they're playing with a lot of confidence, but I think all of that gives you an understanding they're good, they're athletic, they're physical, they're strong at the point of attack, also with a system that allows them a chance to be even more successful, because a lot of people drop 8 and don't bring a lot of guys. But even when they face some stunts, they do a good job inside. And you have Cooper Mays on. He doesn't get enough credit, and the guards don't get enough credit for making sure that they shift off free blitzers and stunt guys. They really communicate very well up front.
We see all the time, and we're going to just switch a little bit over here. So we see all the time accolades going to, Bryce Young and, as you pointed out, Will Rogers, Will Levis. We saw how bad Kentucky looked without Will Levis. They lost to South Carolina. Just terrible. Anywho, how important is Hendon Hooker in this offense? Because I don't think he gets credit as in, Hendon should win the Heisman. But I think a lot of people say, well, he's so good because Heupel made him that way, and Heupel's so, so great offensively. But he takes care of the ball. We've seen that time and time again. So how important is Hendon Hooker in this offense?
Very, because yes, this offense creates spacing. It creates mismatches that makes for some easier throws. But because of the tempo, he's having to run it, Hendon is, at the line of scrimmage. So he has to learn it and know it, not completely like Josh does, but what he is, the game plan that he has to run and his reads, he has to be spot on, or else it wouldn't work. So if you took a guy that is not as good at making the right reads, then all of a sudden a big time throw, which people focus on, that was a great throw. Well, it is, but what's even bigger or just as important is the read pre-snap, or else they don't even recognize certain things. I think he's really good at that. So Josh deserves a ton of credit. Yes, it is quarterback friendly, but quarterback friendly doesn't mean any quarterback can do it. It just makes it a little bit easier to see and read and understand, but it takes a lot of reps. It takes a lot of time. And what people don't know about Hendon is, he's a great young man. I think people know that, but people don't know how hard he works, how much extra time he spends in understanding what he's looking at. That matters a tremendous amount. It does. Guys that are good guys, that are talented, that, come in when they're supposed to and leave when they're supposed to, they usually are limited. It's the guys that spend the extra time. You want to know how Joe Burrow went from a guy that was pretty good to elite? A lot of talent around him at LSU in 2019. His last year there, he had one class, graduate class, and he did it, the online before COVID. It was, I don't know if it was before COVID. It was online. He got up in the morning. He was in the office at 6 o'clock with coaches, and he didn't leave at night. He ate there. He did. Those are the things that separate you. And Matt Landry did that at USC. Hendon is not doing all of those things, but he's doing a lot of those things that I think no one ever sees or understands because they're out of sight, out of mind. But it's those little things that makes him special, and it's why he protects the football, because he knows where to go with it, and more importantly, he knows where to not go with it.
Right. And somebody said, so Hooker is a film room junkie. That's good. That's why we have Chris on. Chris talks to a lot of different coaches and has insight that I think sometimes is even more insightful than he realizes at times. So, yes, he is a film room junkie. That's exactly what Chris was saying. As far as his deep ball in particular, and I the reason I love you, Chris, is you won't go the John Chavis route. John Chavis used to always say, I don't make comparisons. But as far as Hendon Hooker's deep ball, does it remind you of anybody? It is just a beautiful arcing ball that, man, ranks right up there in terms of, he didn't throw every ball great, but that ball in particular, does that remind you of anybody? Who are some of the best deep ball throwers you remember?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, and he's not having a good year at all in the NFL, but Russell Wilson is a good deep ball thrower, and it's part of the problem that they're having right now is they're not getting enough of that. But that's, I don't want to, he's really good. There've been some, to me, the best deep ball throwers are the ones that understand timing and that understands arc. Dropping it in. Hendon has a great sense for that. He's better at that than the crossing routes, and because sometimes even on the back shoulder fade, it's a little bit off, and on the slant route, it's on the hip instead of in front at times. He missed a couple throws last week. But the deep ball, particularly on the 9 route. Okay, so that's just something that just suits his eye. So the deep ball in the post, it's okay, but on the 9 route,
Explain
the 9. I'm sorry, the go route, just the straight go route. So they run those wide splits and they just run a streak right down. Right. And so it's a drop the ball, 3 yards inside the numbers, and the receiver, which has got speed, is going to beat the guy. Let the receiver get under it, but give him enough arc to work under it, because if it's too flat, well, then it bypasses him. You've got to give him a chance. He does that very well. Well, the reason he does it, he likes that route. He works that route, and he knows that it's a pretty safe route. So, again, this is one, you beat the guy deep, you throw it, you look at him. When he misses, it's long. It's rarely short. If it's short, it can be defended or intercepted. If it's long, it's an incompletion. You try again. So he works that a little bit more than any, and it kind of suits his skill set because he's got a good arm, but he understands how to get good arc on it. But he's not as good getting as much arc on some of the intermediate routes, which is going to be an issue next level that he's going to have to work on. But that's what makes him good on that 9 route. We'll call, there's a route tree.
Sure.
And I apologize for that. So when we talk about it, that's the 9 route, the 7's the post, but the streak route. Thank you for asking me to clarify, because sometimes I just forget that stuff.
No worries. Chris, you got stuff cooking at LandryFootball.com, and your contributions covering the SEC are fantastic on our YouTube channel. So people need to like, subscribe, and share. You'll get insight you're just not going to get anywhere else. Kevin said, let me just throw this at you.
Yeah.
Kevin said, Hendon reminds me of Warren Moon, who I will still say, I don't know that I see that as much. I think Warren Moon was one of the best passers of my generation when I was a fan of football, and in that little 10-year period, just ultra uber fan, watched 12 hours a day. I thought Warren Moon is an incredible passer. You see any?
Yeah, I had Warren and Houston. No, I don't see the comparison. Hendon's more athletic. Hendon's better on that deep ball route, but Warren was much better at getting the ball out on time and much more accurate with a variety of routes underneath. Warren was phenomenal at the University of Washington, unfortunately, as a passer, and took him to the Rose Bowl and just great teams. Unfortunately, he had to go into the Canadian Football League to kind of prove himself as a quarterback that's worthy of playing in the NFL. It's what happened in those times, unfortunately, and he was fantastic. I thought that he developed even better in the CFL because of the speed of the game and, the 3 downs and the wide open. And when he came into the NFL, got to remember, Hugh Campbell was hired. He was the head coach of the Edmonton Eskimos, was hired with the Houston Oilers. And he convinced them to bring Vince Bud Adams and Lad Herzog to bring him to Houston. And the rest, as they say, is history. But the run and shoot, which is a little bit, has some, the air raid has some derivatives of that. And I'm talking about like the Mike Leach air raid stuff. I think Warren was a lot better at some of the intermediate routes. Hendon was better on that 9 route. He put even more arc on it. So yeah, I don't see the comparison there between the two. Quite frankly, I think Hendon's a little bit unique in that regard, and Hendon's a little more athletic. Warren couldn't move. I mean, he's a pure drop back guy. I mean, he could move, but yeah, he was a pure drop back guy. Hendon, this is a zone read system, and it's a completely different offense. So a lot different there.
Great stuff, Chris. If you decide that you want to, if you decide you need any of the links for the adult dating sites that were on there, I can go back and look them up and send them to you. If you decide you're out there, playing the field again. So
that's quite all right. Appreciate you looking after me, but we're good. We're good.
You never know.
Thanks a bunch. And
thank you, Chris.
Amanda, keep him in line as best you can. I don't know what to say. I'll leave him in your hands here.